Morning. The scripture reading today is from Mark's Gospel, the 5th chapter, beginning with the 25th verse. There was a woman who had been suffering hemorrhages for 12 years and had been treated by who knows how many physicians, to whom she paid all her money trying to be cured. But not only did she not get any better, she got worse. She'd heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, figuring if I touch his clothes, I'll get well. She was that desperate. So she did, and immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. Immediately aware that power had gone forth from him, Jesus turned about in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" And his disciples gave him a Homer Simpson, "Oh, can't you see the crowd pressing in on you? How are we ever going to know who touched you?" So Jesus looked all around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling, fell down before him, and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." And everybody there saw what happened and knew what happened. Friends, listen. God is still speaking, and we are still listening. In the past few weeks, from 100 angles, I've been instructed not to touch anyone, to keep people 2 paces away, to quarantine myself, to wash my hands every 10 minutes, and not to touch my own face under fear of severe illness, possibly death. I've also been instructed not to fear the threat of severe illness, possibly death. Yeah, right. Willing or wishing fear away just doesn't work. And the way I see it, both COVID-19 and fear have both combined to thrust us into a new world that we Americans never before have experienced, ever. Germany, France, and Belgium experienced such enemy during World War I. Germany, Japan, and Russia did in World War II. China in the 50s and 60s. Cambodia in the 70s and 80s. But never America, not even close, until now. These days, everybody worldwide is in the same boat. Not one person, country, race, or ethnicity exempt. COVID-19 and fear have thrust humanity into a new reality and a new world. And as for managing both the virus and fear, many folks' go-to solution is go-to shopping for toilet paper and sanitizer. But if toilet paper and hand sanitizer actually could manage fear. This coronavirus sometimes makes me want to stay home. Home where I'll have more control over both the who and the what in my little world I need to come into contact with. Warnings about the heightened susceptibility of senior citizens being more at risk than others. Seniors defined as over 60. They're talking about me. Me. And don't they know that I'm invincible? Yeah, right. But I'll tell you this. I'm not so much afraid of the health effects of the virus as I am of the social effects of living in fear. In the long run, social distancing may prove more damaging to humanity than COVID-19. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be responsible with social distancing, but social distancing comes at a price. For those of us wealthy enough to stockpile toilet paper and who knows what else, just what measures will we not take to enforce by any means necessary social distancing, particularly about the time our neighbors run out of toilet paper and milk for their children and thermometers and ventilators. Listen to me now and hear me later. Loving our neighbors absolutely mandates giant steps to mitigate the spread of disease. But loving our neighbors also involves not feeding people's fears. We need to take a deep breath before speaking, because repeating unsubstantiated rumors is nothing less than malicious. We need to listen to other people's fears and seed our compassion and comfort with some common sense. Fear has led humanity over thousands of years to create all manner of taboos, causing untold devastation. Because you see, fear and taboo go hand in hand, and not one sanitizer in the world can wash fear away. Long ago, believing that blood contains the power of new life, and subsequently, our Jewish foremothers set themselves apart during their menstrual periods because such time was sacred time, a time to forego the regular chores and hardships and nuptial duties required by their husbands, a time to contemplate life's sacredness. Unfortunately, their sacred taboo turned into our more modern taboo. What once was beautiful and liberating came to be unmentionable and oppressive. The woman who walked up to Jesus and touched the hem of his garment would have been oppressed by her culture's blood taboo, because it was her own blood. Taboos required her to stay away from others, and if she did encounter people, to shout out, "Unclean, unclean, unclean," as if she were a leper. Now, this isn't particularly easy or pleasant to talk about, given our modern-day taboos, but it speaks to the unblinking, vivid purposefulness that our gospel writers, even in their day, were willing to approach. But this is the gospel story in living and in loving color. Given sanitary conventions back then, coupled with the desert heat of the eastern Mediterranean, I expect that her menstrual smell alone would have alerted Jesus, and everybody else for that matter, that she was square in the middle of her menstrual cycle. And when she fell at Jesus' feet, because her touching a man in such time was a death sentence, such was the power of violating such a tremendous cultural taboo. But get this, he did not expose and condemn her. He did not call her out for violating the blood taboo. What did he do? He called her daughter. And in calling her daughter, he protected her from violating the blood taboo. A greater taboo than her blood taboo would have been her community interfering with family business. Blood family or adopted family. This woman is my daughter, mine. And you want to make something out of that, Jesus warned, calling her daughter. After hearing her story, Jesus bid her peace and declared her free from her affliction, turning her taboo into a taboo. She came to Jesus despicable in her eyes and despised by others. She left him with a blessing within holiness, that only those around them could bestow upon her. So you get it? You get it? He helped both her and her community return to holiness by listening not only to her fear and shame, but helping her community to cherish their own daughter, to cherish her more than their taboos. My daughter, Jesus said, telling the truth has made you whole. Go in peace and be free from your affliction. And she was healed, meaning that she was restored to her community because he listened. But that's not all that happened. You, my people, all of you around here, you who are my mothers and my fathers and my sisters and my brothers, you, my sons and my daughters, you, my elders, related by blood, by our kinship in faith, as you enfold this woman back among you, you make all of us whole. And that's the truth. In coming weeks, we need to hone our listening skills. Fearful people will need to tell us their fears, and we are called to embody love in the world by listening to them. Why? Well, if you don't know by now, Christ has no body in the world but yours and mine. And our godly, careful, care-filled response is what love is in public. The Christ we encounter in the bread and the wine and the body and the blood is the one who empowers us to be love in the world. Us. May each one of us be freed from the affliction of fear as we go in peace to be love in the world, as it shows up in healing, in health, in restoration, and in listening. Amen.
There comes a time when we hear a certain call,
when the world must come together as one. There are people dying.
it's time to lend a hand
To life, the greatest gift of all.
Nous ne pouvons pas continuer à faire semblant, jour après jour, que le changement viendra de quelqu'un.
We are all a part of God's great big family. Heaven true, with all love is all we need. أحلى العالم، أحلى الولاد، أحلى اللي بينا نغير الأحوال. وقررنا أكيد
حبيبي، إذا عشت تشوف المسيح على الأرض شوفه في أخوك الفقير المسكين. المسيح قال كنت جعانا أطعمتموني، كنت عطشانا سقيتموني، مريضا زرتموني. بص حواليك، ناس كتير بتموت، أطفال كتيرة بتنام من غير عشاء. أنت فين من كل دول؟ سيأتي الرب كلص. هل أنت عايش حياة الاستعداد؟ لإلهنا المجد والإكرام الآن والأبد آمين.